A little disclaimer. This beginner's guide to Geist the Sin Eater's 2nd edition is based off of a manuscript for the forthcoming 2nd edition release. There's a chance that there may be adjustments made since the backers were given this information, and if so, I'll make any pertinent adjustments to the recording upon release. Thanks for listening. Over the river and through the woods, right, kid? The thing hovered over her mangled form, and what has to be its face had something like a mocking grin plastered on. Each eye, pale and rheumatic, was spinning in opposite directions, one clockwise and the other countering in the pale sphere. Though you could at least barely tell where the face was, its makeshift body was a whole other matter. The thing's limbs were spindly, and seemed as if they had been stolen off of a decomposing praying mantis. As it spoke, it twitched constantly, eyelids blinking out of sync with one another. If this had been any other moment in Allison's life, she'd be in a fit of hysterical fear. But at the moment, she was far too preoccupied with dying to let something small like a horrifying creature composed of all her nightmares made flesh to distract her. She coughed something up, something globular and fleshy and tasting of copper, and she began crying. At least she couldn't hurt more than she already did. Shh, honey, it's going to be alright. See, I want to make a deal. As the thing she'd go on to call Praying Mary hovered around her, all of its surroundings seemed to fade out of focus. She felt dizzy, but also more clear than she had since she had been in the accident going around the bend. Am I dying? Well, obviously. But listen, we have this little situation. Allison listened. Allison says yes. When the emergency services arrived, they could not believe the scene. The minivan had careened off the side when traveling through the mountain pass, and the wreckage was something straight out of a video game. Small trees had even been taken down by the aggressive nature of the impact. Plastic and polyurethane added to the disturbing nature of the scene as they found baby seats, blissfully unfilled, impaled upon branches. When they found Allison broken but breathing, they called it a miracle. They said nobody survives accidents like that. And they were right, but two things still made it home that night. Welcome to Geist, the Sin Eaters. So, Geist the Sin Eaters is a game of many things. Hope, second chances, how to move about the mortal coil in a tumulus life, and perhaps most importantly, closure. Let's get some things out in the open before we begin. As we mentioned in the disclaimer, this is based off of the manuscript from the forthcoming Geist the Sin Eaters 2nd edition that was funded through Kickstarter. What that means to you is, this is a beginner's guide to the lore of the 2nd edition, and some very massive things have changed since the 1st edition. And while I'm going to break down a grand amount through this and through the other beginner's guides that follow for Geist, if you want the whole picture, go and find Geist on BackerKit, pre-order it, and get ready for a whole slew of ghostly shenanigans as you get access to the manuscript. At some point, perhaps we'll do an edition versus edition breakdown, but as so far, every 2nd edition of the Chronicles book has been vastly superior, there hasn't been a need yet, and I don't know if there's going to be. With that said, let's get going. What is a Geist? A Geist by title is a manner of powerful ghost, almost a little mini death god that has transcended normal ghost limitations and is actively looking for a dying mortal that will fit its particular need. What exactly is that need? Well, that varies, but the end result doesn't. That Geist has shit to do, and he needs access to the lands of the quick, or the living, to do so. What is a Sin Eater? A Sin Eater is the combination of mortal and Geist who have come together in a pact, or being bound as the term goes, together. That Geist was once a living thing, and it has purposes and mysteries that need to be solved before it can move on. And you simply needed to not be dead. However, let's get one thing extraordinarily clear. The Geist did not save your life. It kept death at bay long enough for you to heal. Make no mistake, your Sin Eater is a walking dead man, and there's very few things that can fix that aside from getting 100% in sync with your Geist and helping it move on from its miserable state. To be truthful, however, there's no guarantee that you won't also drop permanently dead and move on to where you were supposed to go when you met your death that day initially. As is often mentioned though, it's the journey, not the destination. Usually. So what do Sin Eaters do? Well, they serve many purposes. In the scheme of things, they are almost spiritual police. They see the dead as readily as they see the living, and therefore they have a unique view of things. Ghosts, you see, are people too, even if they're no longer breathing, and they often need help moving on. The Sin Eaters typically assist with them doing so. This often involves things like communicating with relatives, ensuring their security, protecting long-loved items, and things of material love from when they lived. But they can be nasty as well. See, revenge is a hell of an anchor to our world, and ghosts are nothing if not bitter. Does the Sin Eater assist these as well, or do they find a way to destroy the things keeping them bound to the regular land of the quick, sending them howling to the underworld to live in a perpetual state of misery and pain in order to keep the quick isolated from these things? And I guess that depends on you, Sin Eater. Where do they thrive? Sin Eaters have two places they conduct their business: the normal mortal realm and the underworld. Allow me to clarify some things, however. Our world has two layers, and it's best to think of it as the regular land of the quick, our land of the living, with a layer on top of it called Twilight. The normal mortal world has that above it, and this is where ghosts who have some sort of attachment to the land of the quick live, and where nobody can see them normally. Think of it as an eternally still, blue-hued place of grays. Of course, as a storyteller, do with it as you will. This is for the sake of explanation. That's where the Sin Eaters conduct much of their business. That's where they speak to the dead that have a reason to be attached to the land of the quick. However, deep below our realm is a place you just don't want to be. It's the Underworld, a timeless place that the dark things often hold their court. There's entire cities of shades down there, necropoli filled to the brim with the hopeless dead. And that's just like the top of the Underworld. Deep below you have dominions, where the ancient horrors, often called Kerberoi, exist. Each of these little pocket realms is actually in itself safe for whatever visits there, as long as you follow the unique rules for each of those dominions called the Old Laws. Yet to make things even more ominous, not all of these rules are clear. And to make a mistake in these dark places is tantamount to resigning yourself to an eternity of torment. However, for the brave Sin Eaters who venture to these bleak lands, there's treasure to be had, if you can walk away from the experience whole. Soon I'll be dedicating entire guides to the Underworld, as I recently got the materials and I love the Underworld. But that's for another day, dear listener. I find it to be the most open to storyteller discretion place that I found in the Chronicles of Darkness. It's a land of whatever. You can pretty much make whatever sort of hell or heaven down there that you want. And that's got a lot of potential. So I love the Underworld. I got, World of Darkness, Book of the Dead, Geist, the Sin Eaters, and 2nd edition is going to have very expanded detail of the Underworld. And we'll be getting into that eventually. What are the types of Sin Eaters? I'll give a basic rundown on the types, or burdens, as they're called, because when the Sin Eater died, they had massive unfinished business of some sort left behind, and it drove them to agree to the bargain, the agreement that created the bound. So they're as follows. The Abiding. The Abiding are the definition of unfinished business. Maybe they didn't finish building a porch or see their child born. Generally, a lack of anything left behind as a legacy when they died creates an Abiding. You have the Bereaved. The Bereaved at some point lost someone beyond near and dear to them, and they scour Twilight and the plane of the Underworld, needing to know the fate or fates of their loved one. It could also obviously be more than one person. It could be a family, be a grandmother, a pet. It doesn't matter. They lost someone they loved, and they're hunting for him. You have the Hungry. These poor souls just don't know when to let go. They refuse to leave their lives behind, instead staying to protect what they've built, or forever hunting what was stolen from them. Woe be unto those who get found holding whatever that may be. You have the Kindly. Guilt is a bitch, but it's also a hell of a motivator. They messed up something or some things, and they're back to make it right. They right wrongs and seek to dismantle systems of exploitation. They're going to be very, very busy little bees in the Underworld when they get there, that's for sure. The Vengeful. If guilt is a motivator, try revenge. They blame someone or something, whether they're right or wrong, for their deaths. And the last thing you want is a pissed off mini death god knocking at your door. So what else do we say about Sin Eaters? Well, Sin Eaters have a couple of other things to address. Aside from, again, this is a beginner's guide, so we're not going to get crazy in-depth. We'll get more in-depth as we go along with the other guides. Obviously, the Bound have special abilities they get from channeling their Geist into them, and those are called Haunts. These powers, which we'll cover in the other guide when we do the unique mechanics portion of this, make Sin Eaters an extreme force to be reckoned with, which is very fortunate because Sin Eaters, like Prometheans, mummies, and demons, are very rare. And again, that's the difference between 1st and 2nd edition. In 1st edition, they were like, here's the culture of the, in 2nd edition, they're like, it's hard to have a culture when there's In fact, the Bound usually only start to pop back up in stronger numbers during times of great tragedy and mortality rates, a statistic whose irony is not lost on the Bound. The other two major aspects of the Bound are some of the character creation aspects on the sheet. Primarily, two categories called Root and Bloom, and they dictate the ways that the Sin Eater keeps attached to the land of the living, which is the Root, and what keeps them involved with the dead, which is the Bloom. So what are a Sin Eater's antagonists, aside from, itself and coming to peace with its own Geist? They don't have many, but what they lack in number of threats, they make up for in potency. These are some, but not nearly all, of the things that the Bound may face on their journey. Ghosts, obviously. Some ghosts do not like the fact that beings they consider still living are mucking about in their business. They also don't like the fact that a Geist found a way to get powerful enough to merge with a mortal. And if a ghost is already petty enough to overcome passing on by holding on to things on the mortal plane hard enough, imagine when it gets angry instead of sad and bitter. Other Sin Eaters. The Bound don't always agree on approach, mythology, or faith, and that's never good news. Sometimes the Sin Eaters themselves don't have a problem, but perhaps the Geists of each other's Sin Eaters don't exactly vibe, or they had issues at some point, and that can also cause major problems. Mortals. Hey, let me come in and break that priceless vase you have because your aunt is still here because of it. No? Well, alright then. Pretty much, not every mortal you come across is going to be copacetic with what you're saying. They're not going to agree that their great-great-great-grandfather is haunting their bloodline because he was buried upside down and you got to find a legal way to exhume the corpse, because it's pretty hard to, bring closure to your Geist or any other ghosts if you're in prison. So, mortals can get in the way a lot, especially when you try to explain to them all of this and they think you're nuts. Now, here's my personal favorite as far as their antagonists go. Reapers. As this is going to be the closer for this recording, and I love these guys, let's get into it. There's supposedly powers beyond ken that hold sway over the Underworld. Ancient and terrible, literal gods of death that dictate a secret order, and of course they have an agenda. An agenda that needs fuel, and that fuel is the dead. They need their essence. And that's the reason the Underworld churns the shades up like so much animal food. They use the essence for whatever their dark purposes are. They need as many ghosts down in that place, being soaked up by the realm itself, by the dominions, by these creatures, so that they can further whatever they want or they need. And that's probably unfathomable to itself. However, they need servants. Shades that can fetch them those pesky, safe in twilight shades. Therefore, as speculation goes, they created Reapers. Reapers are shades from the Underworld that were regular ghosts that got guided to death masks. And death masks are the leftover remains of dead Geists. Not the Sin Eaters, but the ghosts they were bound with. Say, for example, that your Geist for some reason got separated from you, sent howling down to the Underworld, and landed in one of the rivers of the Underworld that you cannot come back from, and it just burns it away. But when a Geist dies, it leaves behind its face in some sort of form. It could be a literal mask. It could be a vest that's got this vaguely death-imprinted, agonized, screaming, howling face that you wear that, when it wrinkles the wrong way, just almost looks like something sobbing. It could be anything. Mask term is not necessarily literal. But once that shade finds that ghost finds it, it puts it on, it gets this swell of power. It gets a reminder of what emotions felt like. Depending on the type of Geist it was, it'll necessarily, could feel, this ravenous hunger or whatever. And I'll tell you, if you've got a ghost that's been down in the Underworld for 400, 500 years, the sensation of feeling hungry is going to be extremely welcome to that creature. It is going to be like, oh shit, I can feel something? This is amazing. And it doesn't want to lose that again. So those forces go, here's the deal. You hold on to that mask, but you get your happy ass up into the land of the quick and twilight, and you bring me as many ghosts as you can to spit back down here into the Underworld, because they need that essence. They're just not getting it fast enough. So they're drafted into work, and the Reapers are more than happy to do it. Drowned in ephemeral power and drunk off those newly remembered emotions, The Reapers take to the lands of the Quick and Twilight, and they get hunting. Any shade they find they can easily overpower. And they take them, literally swallowing them. And then they travel back down to the Underworld and spit them back up. They regurgitate the ghosts back to the Underworld. And, they're left to whatever dark fate awaits them in the Great Below. Ironically, however, many Reapers aren't evil. After all, the dead reasonably belong among the dead. They shouldn't be troubling the living as they see it. Often when they bring them down below, they point them to the closest necropolis and tell them to get moving. Like, they're not out to just, punish them, typically. Imagine, however, the Reaper who gets it in his head that the easiest way to bring as many dead to the Underworld is just by killing a ton of people and immediately taking them down below. After all, that should make the Masters happy. They have certain skill sets, certain powers. Mind you, in 2nd edition, there's actually going to be a Reaper Chronicle built into it, which I love that they do with these 2nd editions. And they've got their own sets of powers. They can literally take chunks of land, like a city block if they're strong enough, and literally just pull that bitch right down into the Great Below. They can take swaths of land and just open up a gate and just drop them down there. And yeah, if the living are down there, yeah, they're alive. But how long are you going to stay living in a land of the dead like that? Where these things are hateful, angry, bitter, mad, scary, terrifying. How many people are going to starve to death when they can't find food if they open in a wide open expanse of land down there? How many of them just land immediately in those rivers we were talking about? And, the hungry masters, they don't give a shit if you're newly dead or you weren't supposed to be there. As long as they're getting ghosts in essence to churn out their machinations, they're pleased. So, like I said, a lot of potential. So there you have it. A Beginner's Guide to the Lore of Geist the Sin Eater 2nd edition. Geist and Mage are easily my 2 favorite Chronicles books. And you can expect far more coverage on these guys, as well as lots of random musings. I really, really enjoy it. I've got Book of the Dead. I've got Geist 1st edition already. I've got the Manuscript for 2nd edition. Some of the other books have scattered stuff, and I won't lie to you, I'm even going to pull some stuff from Wraith the Oblivion, because I like some of the concepts it had, and that's going to be embraced in here. So, I really hope you enjoyed this recording as much as I enjoyed making it. Please don't hesitate to shoot us any questions here, or on Facebook on @thebotchpit, Twitter the same, or on the website, thebotchpit.com. Your questions are probably our favorite part, so that really makes it show that people are engaged. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and we'll keep these going. We want to be the resource for beginners on the Chronicles of Darkness, as well as the other games that we're doing. So have a great night. Happy New Year's if you don't get to catch another recording before I do this. Yeah, thank you very much. Have a good night.